We're loading. All right, I think we're started. I'm going to go ahead and cue the music, and let's get the right screen up here. All right there. Hey, data lovers, and welcome to another episode of I Love Data Fridays here at the International Data Evaluation Center on the campuses, the frozen campuses of The Ohio State University. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special edition of I Love Data Fridays here on a Thursday. And we're going to be talking about the Reading Recovery Follow-Up Study with researchers from the Center for Research and Education and Social Policy. And we will be talking about Cohort 4, the data collection, our last cohort. So, hey, who's talking data to you today? Well, you've got me, Jeff Breimer-Bashore, Director of IT and Operations and Principal Investigator here at the International Data Evaluation Center. And I am joined by Akeisha Sarfo and Allie Blakeney from the researchers from Center for Research and Education and Social Policy at the University of Delaware. Akeisha, Allie, you guys want to say hi real quick?
Hello.
Welcome back. As you guys all probably guessed, we did small talk about weather beforehand, and it's cold everywhere. So we're gonna try to keep things moving and warm here on today's podcast. So here is our agenda. We're going to have a presentation about the data collection for Cohort 4 of the study. Akeisha is going to go first and talk about the study in general and the data collection associated with that. Then I'm going to pick up part of it and talk about the data collection that you will do on the IDEC website. And then we will have a Q&A session at the end, and you can post your questions at www.slido.com. Just enter in event code X171, and we will see your questions on the screen. And I am ready. I guess we're ready to talk a little data. So Akeisha, let me slide your screen back over here real quick and make it full size. And I will mute myself and turn everything over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as Jeff said, I am one of the lead researchers here for this study, and some of you received emails from me or some kind of communication about the study. I'm just going to do a brief overview of the study and what we're asking for in terms of your participation. And then, there'll be time for some questions at the end. So this is the follow-up study to the initial Reading Recovery Scale-Up study that was conducted maybe 7 or 8 years ago. In that initial study, we found rigorous evidence of large impacts of reading recovery on students' first grade literacy. This particular study is looking to see if those impacts are sustained through students' 3rd and 4th grade years. It is a 3-year study. We're in our 2nd year of data collection. And as Jeff had mentioned, this is cohort 4. So there's four sections of data that we'll be collecting through this study. So for our purposes as the researchers for this project, we are looking to collect both survey and test score data for students who participated in the cohort 4 portion of the study. We'll be looking at data on both reading recovery and tested non-instructed students. And if you're on this call, that means that your school kind of made the cut, right? So your school had at least 7 reading recovery and 2 TNI students in the cohort 4 year. And also if you're on this call, it means that you were either designated as a data collector or you did not respond to the actual initial pre-survey that was sent out. So we're hoping that you'll decide within the next couple of days who will collect that data for your school. The survey will launch on Monday, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But We're calling the person who's going to collect both the survey and test score data, the data collector, and that person will receive a $75 gift card, Amazon gift card for the, for the completion of both sets of data. And so that also means if you are collecting data for multiple schools, you'll receive a $75 gift card for all the schools that you're collecting data for. So we have completed 3 cohorts, 3 rounds of data so far, the collection of 3 rounds of data so far. We are on cohort 4, and that means that students were in first grade in the 2014-15 school year. We've already started with the pre-survey, and now we are asking for you all to submit your test score data to IDAC, as well as complete the school survey, the student and school survey. So let's first talk about test scores. You can start this process at any time. I know that some people have already been working on theirs, but the whole purpose of collecting the test scores is so that, and so we're asking for 3rd and 4th grade test scores, reading state standardized test scores, scale scores. Purposes of for collecting those scores is to look at to estimate the long-term impacts of reading recovery on reading performance through students 3rd and 4th grade, as well as to estimate how much school level variability there is in those long-term impacts that we estimate. So we, once again, will be collecting 3rd and 4th grade scale scores on reading and or English language arts state assessments. When you go into IDAC, and Jeff will walk you through this in a second, there should be some pre-populated assessments in there. If not, you can go ahead and fill in your state assessment that's not listed. But basically, you're going to include the name of the test score for each student for their 3rd and 4th grade years. And if it's missing, if you don't have that data for the student, the reason why it might be missing. So Jeff, I'm going to hand it over to you if you can walk them through how to upload their test score data into IDAC.
Okay, yeah, okay, good, all right, there we go. So as Keisha's saying, you can start immediately by uploading your test scores data in the IDAC website. The data can be entered either by a teacher leader or teacher. The case where if a teacher leader will have to do it is that if the teacher who, was originally served the students back in 2014 is no longer there, the teacher leader will have to enter the data on the website. It's just how the website works. Once data are entered, people only need to click the Save button. There's no need to click the Submit button and have it approved by anybody. Just get the data in there and click the Save button, and we're going to quickly take it here. We're going to see how we're going to do that. So let me move another window over here. All right, so I'm on the IDE website here, and we're going to go over to the left side of the page, and we are going to select the 2014-15 school year. That will refresh. And you will just, so you will see then on this page a column that just says the U of Delaware follow-up, and that is the column where you will enter data for your students. It will only show up for your reading recovery and your tested, not instructed students. So all you need to do is just click on, we're going to use this student as an example here. We're going to click on the empty data page. And you're going to see 8 questions. They are divided into 2 columns, 4 questions for each column. The left-hand column is for 3rd grade questions. The right-hand column is for 4th grade questions. And they each have the same exact set of questions. I'll just go over the 3rd grade questions here. First one just asks you to indicate which assessment was given. And as Akeisha says, we have a pre-populated list of assessments, so you can select your assessment. If you don't see it, you can select other from the list, and then question number 2 will become active, and you can type in the name of that assessment in there. If the student was not given an assessment, you just select none, and then questions 2 and 3 will disable, and you will be able to then type a reason into question number 4. If the score was missing, just please briefly explain. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can just simply say student moved from school district, and that's fine. If you do have a score, so I'm going to just go ahead and pick the Ohio Achievement Test, you then would just enter the scale score into question number 3 right there. The same rules apply for the 4th grade columns, the same list of assessments and the same options to either put in another assessment if it's not there, or to select none if you didn't give the assessment, and then simply then requiring you to explain why the data are gone or not there. So once you're done, then you just click the Save button, and that will save it into the database for you. No need to click the Submit button to submit it to a teacher leader for approval. I don't think I'm going to have an example handy of teacher leaders. I was going to show you if you had to do data collection instead of a teacher who was no longer there. So I will just kind of talk you through the steps. Let me bring that screen back up. If you are entering data on behalf of a teacher who is no longer in reading recovery, initially you will have to click the Acquire button. It's not showing on the screen here, but you will see an Acquire button. You will acquire the record, and then you will enter the data and click the Save button, and it will be saved into the database. All right, now let me bring up Akeisha's screen here. Akeisha, let me have you roll forward one slide. So I think I turn it back over to you now, Akeisha, okay?
I think so. Yep, so it's my turn. Okay, so thank you so much, Jeff. Yeah, so if you have any questions specifically related to uploading test scores data, please contact IDEC about that. Anything related to the school or the survey, please contact CREST. So the survey, we are asking for your completion of a school and student survey for the students that were identified. And so those students were identified in your pre-survey. A lot of you all printed them out already. If you need your list of students again, feel free to contact us, but as soon as you enter into the survey, you should see those students as well. So don't worry about that. The reason why we're collecting this data is so that we can look at the variability in the persistence of impacts, if that variability can be explained by school level or student level factors, and to look at what performance monitoring or interventions students experienced from their 1st grade year through their 4th grade years. So the kinds of questions we'll be looking at are changes at the school level, looking at changes in administration, and at the student level, looking at whether students were retained, whether they received an IEP, whether they were continuously monitored, and specifically which literacy interventions they received in between their 1st and 4th grade years. And so I'm going to have Allie Blakeney walk you through the survey. She's one of the main developers of the survey. And she's going to walk you through what we're looking for. It'll be useful for you to save this link so that you can go through these slides again, or so you can see what's in the survey as you're collecting your data, or the actual survey items are saved on our frequently asked questions page.
Hello. So my name is Allie, and just as a reminder for those who joined us for the last webinar session, the survey is pretty much the same as it has been in the past 3 cohorts. So if you have already completed the survey once, you should find that it's very similar. So I'm going to be walking us through slide by slide each question and what screens you will see when you log into the survey. So hopefully this will help you prepare if you want to collect data beforehand, or it will at least give you an idea what to expect if you have not done this before. So when you click on the URL in your email that will be sent out by us next week, you will see this splash screen when you enter into the survey. It's just a general thing telling you that there's 2 sections. The first is going to be asking you to identify and locate students, and our second section is going to be the actual school characteristics and literacy interventions that students received. for those students that you were able to locate. So when you enter them into a survey, you will see that a list of all of your students for that school listed by their IDEC number and their name. And we are going to be asking if you have already submitted state standardized test scores for their 3rd and 4th grade academic years to IDEC. If you select yes, you will proceed on to the survey, but if you select no, you will be diverted to this page, giving you resources on how to enter the standardized test scores via the portal that Jeff just went over, as well as contact information if you have any questions about that process. After you've entered in your standardized test scores, you can click on your URL in that survey link and you'll be brought back to this page. You can click it to confirm that you have now completed the entry of the test data, and you will now rejoin the survey and this is the question that folks will see if you selected yes, you had already submitted data, or after you confirm that you have submitted the test score data. So the first question in the survey is asking you to identify where your students were for the 2017-18 academic year. And all the students are going to be listed with 3 options. Whether they still attended the same school, if they attended a different school in the same district, or if you cannot locate the student. If you cannot locate the student for this school year, you will not see the student again. They're going to drop off the list and you will be asked no further questions. If you state that they attended the same elementary school, they will be included on your list. And if you say that they attended a different school in the same district, you will see this prompt asking you if you can provide the names of literacy interventions provided to these students for their academic years, for their what would have been the equivalent to their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade academic year. For those that you're able to locate for that information on, they will be included in your survey. And again, those who you cannot locate information on, they will drop out and you will not be asked about them again. So that is section 1. Section 2 is the school characteristics and individual literacy intervention collection for each student. And for those who have done the survey in the past, this part is a little bit different. So based off some issues with our survey provider, who's a 3rd-party vendor, they no longer have the capacity to save all of your data as you enter it unless you advance to the next screen. So this survey has an automatic save feature. However, in order for the data to be locked in and saved, you will have to advance to the next screen. During our last cohort, we realized that this was an issue. So we have now added a blank screen, which I will show you in a bit. So all the student and school-related questions are on one page, which is going to be great for printing out if you need to take time away from the computer screen to track down this data and then come back and enter it. So everything's on one page. But when you forward on, the survey won't let you forward in our prior incarnation. The survey wouldn't let you forward unless you had inputted all of the data. And that's still relatively the case. You need to input data for the first 3 questions. Those are required questions before you can proceed on. However, if you are inputting data for the literacy intervention programs afterwards, you can come back and forth. So I'll go over this in a bit more detail as I show you the screens below. But the summary is that on the screen, your data will not be automatically saved unless you can forward to the next screen. We therefore recommend that you don't enter any data on the screen until you have the first few questions worth of data ready to input, because then you can come back and forth to enter the literacy intervention. But any data that you put onto the screen before being able to click continue will not save. So the first question on this page is asking if the school administrator changed between the equivalent of students' second, third, and fourth grade school years. We've had questions on this in the past, and we're referring to the overall administrator of the school, not necessarily if a student went to a different building within the school that had its own, and that building had its own administrator. We're looking solely to see if there was any administrator turnover that might have resulted in different policy or leadership levels from the school. So this is a simple yes, no. You input, you make a selection for one of each of the 3 school years. The next question is asking what grade level each of the students that you're able to locate was in for what would be the equivalent of their second, third, and fourth grade years. This question is basically looking to see whether a student was retained. So you'll see this drop-down box for each school year for each student that you're able to locate, and it's asking you to input their respective school year. So if a student was retained, for example, you could put first here and then second, third, and this would let us know that they were retained for first grade. This question has to do with whether or not the student had an IEP designation within the same 3 academic years. Again, this is equivalent to your second, third, and fourth grade year. It's a simple yes/no question, and you will be required to input data for each of the 3 years for each student. This question is looking at whether or not students were continuously monitored for reading issues in their second, third, and fourth grade years. This is, again, a simple yes/no that will be required to be completed for each student. Now, I should say that I misspoke earlier. You actually have to complete the first 4 questions of the survey before it will allow you to move forward. So after this point, the remainder of the survey will just be intervention questions. So we highly recommend that you do not enter any data on this page until you have all the information needed for these first 4 questions, because otherwise when you close the survey and come back in, all of that prior data entry will be lost, and we don't want you to have your time wasted like that. So again, these are now simply the intervention questions. You will receive one of these questions for each student that you were able to locate. And we are looking for what interventions they may have received in their second, third, and fourth grade years. There's approximately 40 pre-populated common interventions on the left-hand side, as well as 3 others where it's just an other option, where it allows you to type in an intervention in a text box if you do not see it listed here. There, at the very bottom of the page, there's also a selection listed none. So for these checkboxes, we request that any interventions the students received in any given year, that you check however many are applicable. And if the student didn't receive a single intervention, then you select none at the end. This would allow us to, as researchers, to know that the student did not receive any versus maybe they did receive something, but we just don't know what it would have been. So again, click all that are applicable for the student for each year. And if none are applicable, click none at the very bottom of this question. So this is the screen that you will see when you advance the survey past that prior page. It's just a reminder that to complete the first 4 questions, because you will not be allowed to forward to this page until those 4 are completed. You can then click the back button here to go back and input your intervention data. If you are already completed everything that you needed to, and you're ready to submit your survey, you can click continue here. And when you are ready to submit, we do ask that you just acknowledge that the survey, once you hit continue here, once continue is hit, you cannot re-enter the survey. So if there's any data changes that need to be made, or if you have any uncertainties, you can click the back button and scroll through, because once continue is hit, we cannot retrieve the survey for you. And so if something has to be changed, we will need to go through, create a brand new survey, and have all that data re-entered except for what needs to be changed. So once you're satisfied with your answers, you feel confident that everything is good to go, click continue, and you will be thanked for completing the survey. It will be acknowledged that your response has been recorded, and you can email us if you have any further questions.
Thank you, Ali. So, like I said, these slides that are included in this that reference the survey are saved on our frequently asked questions page. So, or you can always email us and ask us for them to, because you'll probably want to know the questions in the survey before you start collecting the data. That's probably the most helpful thing I can tell you. So what's next? Actually, I did not update these slides. I'm sorry, I totally forgot about this slide. What's next is just this bottom portion, actually. And it's just that we're launching the survey on Monday. So you should receive a link from us probably Monday morning. If you do not, please don't be afraid to email us, explaining to you what the survey is about and including your survey link. If you have multiple schools, you'll receive a survey link for a separate email for each school. And then you can go in there and complete the survey. Once again, you can start the uploading of your test score data anytime now. But all data collection should be completed by March 15th. So that gives you a little bit over a month to complete the data collection activities. Feel free once again to ask us any questions at any time. Our contact information, I'm sorry, before I get to that, so there's a website for our actual study. There's a website that describes the data collection activities in more detail. It's really a summary of what we did today. And then here is that frequently asked questions page. And it's the last question on there that has the actual survey items. And you can just click on that, print them out, and then make sure that you know what you're looking for before you start collecting the data. And you can also come back to this webinar. Yes, so our contact information is here, crest-rr@udel.edu. Feel free to ask us any questions at any time. We're happy to help. And if you have any questions specifically related to the test score data, you can always contact IDEC, or general questions as well. You can contact IDEC. And that's all I have.
All right, good. So, folks, before we so we'll open up for questions here. I'm watching the questions page as we go. As we're watching, I wanted to add one thing in here that I know if some of you were watching and you're watching how Ali go through the questions and you're kind of asking yourself, some of this may seem a little more difficult than maybe it has to be. I want you to know it's not because Ali enjoys making your life difficult, but the third-party software has changed over the course of this whole project, and some of the things that made it sort of easier for you guys on the end to use, they changed or disabled, and so Ali and the team had to go back and redo stuff. Really, Ali, right? I mean.
Yeah, we've had to make some changes, and so we do apologize in advance for anything that might be too much. But really, if I were a data collector, or at least a survey, if it was going to complete the survey, I would write down all of my answers just to be safe. That's a little more tedious, but it really is probably the best way to do this. Write down all of the answers to the survey questions and then enter them into the survey.
And to
just a recommendation.
Yeah, to piggyback onto that, we have made sure that for the school characteristics and interventions portion, that it is all on one page so that it can all be printed out at one time. It's a little bit trickier with the student page in terms of location. However, it's the same thing where that one question should be on one page where you'll be able to see all of your students' names, and then it's just a matter of whether or not you can locate them or not.
Yeah, so anyway, so we appreciate all everyone, well, Allie and everybody, I appreciate you guys' work having to deal with all of that, and then we also appreciate out there in the world everyone who is going to be entering data. So good. I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, so I think we'll go to our standard sort of fill in the blank space here a little bit. So I know we have our questions and concerns and emails on there, and who you should send emails to. If you're in doubt on what type of question it is and who it should go to, please feel free to send it to the IDEC help desk, and we will triage it to the right place and get the answer and everything. If your school districts have concerns about, IRBs, once again, contact us both. We have all of our documentation and everything, and if we need to get a data sharing agreement in place, that can be done as well. I'm hoping, Akeisha and Allie, that really we're seeing a lot of the same schools again, like they've gone through the rotation, and we're just back to some of the initial schools we started with, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Anything else, guys? Or no one's submitting any questions, so.
I get a common question, actually. Let me address it right now. So after March 15th is the deadline for submitting the data. If you've submitted the data on time in that time period, you should receive your gift card within 2 weeks. So just give us a little time to check everything to make sure everything was collected, and then you should receive it within 2 weeks.
Okay.
I think that's all.
All right. Well, good. Well, then I will switch over a couple screens here. Find where that's, and then let's see. Closing screen. Let's find the music outro, and we'll say, all right, folks. Well, we're going to say thank you for watching another I Love Data Fridays here. Thank you, Akeisha, and thank you, Allie, for your time today as well. And we will talk data to you later.